Okay, class, let's take a quick look at your review packet here. I want to go through the answers. If you want to fast forward to the end so that you can just see how to enter those on Canvas, that's fine. So the first half, I'm going to work out the problems, but feel free to fast forward, pause, rewind, whatever, if there's only specific problems you want to look at. So let's start off here at number 1. If we're going through and solving number 1, the parentheses are telling us we want to distribute. So we have a 3x plus 3 minus 5 equals a 3x minus 2. Okay, then we have variables on opposite sides. So when they're on the opposite side, we get them together with the opposite sign. Okay, those cancel, so there's no x's left. So 3 minus 5 is negative 2 and negative 2. That is a true statement. Negative 2 does equal negative 2. And when we get a true statement, we say all solutions. Okay, number 2 is an inequality, but again, we have variables on both sides, so we want to get those variables together. You can choose either way to move, but I'm going to choose to move the negative. So my 4d's will cancel, so I'll have negative 5 is greater than or equal to 6d plus 13. I can then subtract the 13 from each side. So I'll have negative 18 is greater than or equal to 6d. Undo multiplication with division. Now I'm dividing by a positive 6. So when I divide by a positive, that is not a reason to flip the sign. So I have negative 3 is greater than or equal to d. But then for my final answer with d being first, that is a reason to flip the sign. Okay, so these aren't asking us to solve, so we're fine there. Okay, number 3. This time we have variables on the same side of the equal sign. So when they're on the same side, we're going to get them together with the same sign. So 4x minus 2x gives us a 2x. Hang on, I didn't get that clicked properly. And then we're just down to a 2-step equation. We'll divide by 2. X equals 14. Number 4, we have one of these sort of larger fractions or whatever you maybe want to call them. Okay, but that 9 is not part of it. And when that 9 is not part of the fraction, that means that we need to move the 9 first. So I'm going to subtract 9 on each side. And I'll undo my denominator. And then divide by 3. So I'll get an answer of x equals 10 over 3. Scroll this down a little bit here. Okay, so number 5, we have parentheses. So we want to distribute first, right? So we're passing this out with multiplication. So 9y plus 3 is less than 13y minus 8. Our variables are on opposite sides of the inequality sign, so we need to use the opposite sign. So it was a positive 9y, so I'm going to use a negative 9y. Add the 8 over. Undo multiplication with division. Now, you can choose to turn this into a decimal, a mixed number, whatever. As long as you're reduced, again, I don't care what format it's in. But if we rewrite this with the variable first, that's a reason to flip the sign. So I'm just going to leave this as y is greater than 11 over 4. Number 6, everything is part of that fraction. When everything is part of the fraction, we need to move the denominator first. So I'm going to undo division with multiplication. Again, those just cancel out. It doesn't affect the numerator. I'm multiplying by a positive, so that's not a reason to flip the sign. And I'm going to undo my addition and subtraction. Dividing by negative 3 is a reason to flip the sign. So I'm going to flip my inequality sign. Again, I don't care what format, but don't round. So this is a situation where you have a 3 as a denominator. So we'd get negative 6 and 2/3. If you left this as a 0.6 and not a 0.6 repeating, you would not get full points. So make sure you're not rounding any of your answers. Number 7. Scroll down a little bit more here. Number 7, we have a compound OR. Okay, so with compound OR, right, we're just solving them both individually. So I'm just going to only focus on this first one, right? I'm just going to pay attention to this and just solve it like a regular inequality, not even paying attention to the other side. Right, dividing by a negative is a reason to flip the inequality sign. Okay, and then I'm going to solve the other one. Undo addition and subtraction first, so that 5 is moving first. Okay, so these both make up the answer, right, with OR in between them. And now I'm going to put that on my number line. So I have a -6 and a 5. 5 is filled in and shaded to the right. -6 is open and shaded to the left. OR means anywhere that I have anything is coming down onto the inequality line. So anywhere I have anything is here and here. Number 8 is compound and. Compound and I need to solve this all in one big chunk, right? Where the idea is I sort of want to ignore that -9. I'm going to sort of ignore that for a second and think about what I would do first, right? And the first thing that we would do is subtract 7. Okay, so if we subtract 7 here and here, the idea is that we also want to subtract 7 over here. And then we're going to divide by 2. And again, that's happening in all 3 places. So I have -8 is less than x, which is less than 3/2. Most of my students will prefer a decimal on this one since we are going on to the number line. Again, it doesn't matter what form as long as you're not rounded. Don't really have to do any approximating because we're just doing those 2 numbers. Okay, so at 1.5, we have an open circle to the left. Now remember, when we're graphing this one, we need to rewrite that. So the variable's first, and that means flipping the sign. So this is filled in and shaded to the right. And we want to put our final answer as any place where they're both happening, right? Compound and is both. So even though we don't see the word and in this, right, when we see nothing at all, that means it's compound and. So anywhere that they're both happening or where they overlap is in the middle. And this is a filled in circle at the beginning. Number 9, we are solving for y. Okay, so to solve for y, right, we want to move any addition and subtraction first. And that 14x is attached with addition or subtraction. Now we're going to look in front of it. It's a positive 14x, so we're going to use a negative 14x. Okay, those cancel. That's going to leave us with a negative 4y equals a negative 14x plus 24. Now, again, you could write that in any order, but I'm always going to write it with that x first because long-term, that's the habit we want. And then we're going to undo our multiplication with division. Remember that division goes all the way through. And we want to make sure we get this reduced. So negative 14 over negative 4. Well, 2 negatives make a positive. And then I can reduce 14 over 4 to 7 over 2. A positive and a negative make a negative, and 24 divided by 4 is 6. So we have y equals 7/2 x minus 6. Okay, so number 10 is asking us to actually use words, right? Explain, write, talk about. So this isn't even about you just showing me math work. This is about you being able to explain what you would be doing. Okay, so I'm not going to write out full sentences because your words could be different than mine, but you'd be saying something about how, 1, you should be getting the 5x and the 3x together, and that because they're on opposite sides of the equal sign, you're using the opposite sign. Okay, your second step should be something about how you're getting the 12 and the 26 together. And again, something about how they're on opposite sides. You're subtracting that. And then your final step would be that you are dividing each side to get x by itself. So you can sort of choose your words there as to how you would explain it. I don't want to put words in your mouth or fill that in, so I'm going to leave that up to you. Somehow I apparently closed this, so hang on one second. I'm going to open this back up. Okay, so heading down here, describing the difference between compound and compound or. Again, you'd be writing something about how compound and is where we have both of them, where they're overlapping. Compound or is we're just looking for anywhere one of them is happening. Number 12 is asking us to describe Bruce's mistake and then give the correct solution. So what you're going to need to do is look at all of his work over here and decide if it's wrong. I think the easiest way to do that is to solve it yourself and then compare. So if we look at this original problem, the first thing that we would probably do is distribute. Okay, and so that would give me a 12x plus 6 minus 5 equals 25. Okay, and then I would combine like terms. So 6 minus 5 is a positive 1. And then I would subtract 1. Okay, now we just want to look and see how his work is different. Now, again, his work might not be exactly the same as ours, but where are we seeing glaringly different numbers? So maybe to get from this step to this step, right, it looks like he lost this 5. So he undid subtraction with addition, and that's okay because that 5 isn't inside the parentheses. So while that step is different than ours, it's not wrong. Okay, then this next step from here to here, it looks like he lost the parentheses. So then he was distributing. So he got a 12x plus 5. And if we look at where we distributed, right, we did not get that. We got a 12x plus 6. So his mistake is that when he distributed, he added 3 plus 2 instead of multiplying them. Number 13 is asking us to translate this into a equation. Yeah. Trying to go back to this. Okay, so if we want to translate this into an equation, 4 times a number, so 4 times a number is going to be 4x. Increased by 10 is going to be adding 10. Is at least, remember, at least is sort of backwards. It's not this. So at least makes us think less than or equal to, but if it's at least, it has to be more than that. Okay, so at least 8 less than. Remember, less than tells us to subtract, but also to change the order. So we need that 8 to be at the end. The same number says just choose the same variable. So you don't need to solve it. You just need this. Okay, so then we have a story problem that we need to solve. A local charity is donating socks and shoes to kids in need. Their total budget. So as soon as we're reading that total, right, that's telling us that we want to set something equal to the total. They're going to spend $635 on socks. Okay, and they're going to purchase shoes for $32 each. How many pairs of shoes can they donate? So if they're purchasing shoes at $32 per shoes, you could choose a different letter. Right, that takes us here. And now this is something we can solve. Oh, let's see. So I'm just going to use my calculator. That tells me 32x equals 4065. Divide that by 32 and I'll get 127.03. Okay, now this is saying that at most, right? At most they have $4,700 in their budget. So even though we might think, oh, we could round up, we can't spend any more than that. So, right, that's really saying at most. So we need to be thinking at most. So that means at most we can buy 127 shoes. Now, let's talk about once we get these answers, how are we going to put these into Canvas? So I'm not going to go through and do every single problem's answer since we have it, but instead we're just going to take a look at Canvas. Okay, and remember there's going to be two parts to your test. One spot where I can't type the top. One spot where you're just entering your answers and the other part where you're uploading. So that part where you're entering your answers is going to be really important. Okay, so if we're looking at the review and making sure that we can enter our answers into Canvas, this is exactly how it's going to look on test day. Okay, so let's say that you're just talking about an equation. Okay, entering an answer to an equation is much less important, however, unless, right, it's telling you to type. So like on our first one, we got all solutions, so we would be typing in all solutions. Okay, if you want to type in an inequality, I don't even remember, I don't have the answers pulled up, but remember we have to click this box over here. Okay, and we're typing on the square root of x. So maybe for our answer, right, you'd just be looking at your answer sheet. Maybe for our answer, we're getting D, right, is less than, right? So you're picking your symbol and then putting in your number. So making sure you're entering that properly there. Okay, that's just an equation. If you have something that's with fractions, right here, you'd be typing them both in. So number 7 for compound. You can do this all at once. So you're going to type in that whole entire answer. Let's see. We had D was less than. You can do less than with your keyboard or select it from the relationship. -6 or, right? And then we had X was, trying to look and see if I remember what the other, well, I don't remember what the other one was, but it's fine. You know, D is greater than 5 or whatever it is, right? So you can still get that word or in there and then you'll hit insert equation, right? And it will go in. Oh, I think I was right. Plus 5. Then number 8 is going to be your info from number 7. So you will have that graph of it on a number line and then you'll pick your options. So when we graphed this, it shaded out on both sides. The circle on the left, right? So back on this graph, the circle on the left was an open circle and the circle on our right was the filled in circle. Okay, and that's what you'll be doing for those with the graphs. Solving for y when you're typing your answer, and again, you're going to have to use the equation editor, but you'll be able to do y equals 7/2, right? Is your fraction button. X, right? Plus whatever. I think it was a minus. Anything that you're explaining, you're going to enter all your work directly here. So you'll say the first thing I would do is combine the variables, whatever, blah, 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 and just type that info there. Same thing here, we're just typing. Same thing here, you can write out the mistake that he made and enter the correct solution here, just when you're trying to type in that answer if you need to, you can use your math tool. Okay, same thing here, right? You're just using that math tool and putting in that final answer. And then you'll just submit it when you're done. Okay, so if you have any questions about how to use that or how to enter those, make sure you let me know before you take your test.